name is Chris Wojcik. I'm a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Jeff Serafin, now living in Austin, Texas, training out of the B team. My favorite submission is probably the Aoki lock, just because that's the one that I'm the best at. Close second would be like an arm triangle, because I think it's like super satisfying and it's a sign that you are doing everything right. But with the arm triangle, what's satisfying is that it's like kind of this, like, you've taken somebody down or gotten on top, you've passed the guard, you've secured the mount, you've isolated like their neck, you've done pretty much everything right. And I think that's like the purest expression of like high quality jiu-jitsu. I think that the Aoki lock is really satisfying because it's kind of a trick. Like, you can tap people who are way better than you just by getting a foot lock. Like, for me, I'm never the most athletic guy in my bracket. I'm like pretty athletic, but there's some really athletic guys, and for me, that levels the playing field, having like a trick. And like Craig has also talked about this, and I agree with him. Like, I think one of the most fun parts about jiu-jitsu is just like laying traps for people and like, being clever and, making it more of a game than just imposing your will. Imposing your will is cool. I think it's satisfying, but tricks are also fun. My least favorite submission is probably like the least favorite submission that I hate having done to me is like a smother. Like, any sort of smother, having it done to me is just like, I'm angry. It works. It's like just a terrible, terrible thing. And I don't even really do it very much anyway. So it's like, it's not my thing. I think that my least favorite submission to apply is probably like a calf slicer, because it works and most people don't think it works. So there's like a huge risk that I could hurt somebody in training. And then in competition, it like, the success rate really goes down. So it's like, it works, but if they don't respect it, they're probably just going to get hurt. It's not like a pain compliance. The break comes so fast. So it's like it's like kind of dangerous almost, especially like to do on like casual practitioners. I try to like avoid using it for anything except for like to be scary. One story that's interesting is like one of my good training partners from back home, a guy named Ramses Bugarin. He's a black belt. He owns a gym called Living Art Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the Chicagoland area. He was like terrified of leg locks, and he would always tap like the second you grabbed him. And we were training, it was back in the gi, we were doing gi, and I put him in a calf slicer and I popped his knee, like, and he didn't know any leg locks. It just, the friction, it got super tight. It was too fast. I didn't have like the ability at the time to control it. And now he's like one of the best leg lockers that I've trained with. He's just gotten so good from just like, he went from not knowing anything, getting broken, and then now he's like one of the best leg lockers I've trained with. The smother. I think Gordon smothered Couch at a Who's Number One like 3 years ago. And then, that was cool. It was like, oh wow, he like was so dominant. But that started a trend where everybody else tried to do smothers. And that was like really annoying for me, because now I have to like, everyone's trying to figure out the best. And it's not a technique. You just lay on somebody. It's not like, it's not cool. You're laying on somebody. So I think that for me, my goal as a grappler has always been to be the most well-rounded grappler that I can be. And that comes from addressing the holes. And so when I started jiu-jitsu, I was a pretty good wrestler. And I was, I would just get on top and I would try to stay on top. And when they would stand up, that was like perfect. I would try to wrestle. And then I started to lose because the holes in my game were being exposed and people were pulling guard. So then I started playing guard, and I started playing guard every single round. And then now, full circle, I'm a black belt, and now I'm back to working on wrestling because I've spent so much time playing guard that now the holes that are being exposed are not being able to out wrestle guys. So for me, like, the transition it's never really been, oh, I want to be a guard player, or oh, I want to be a wrestler. It's like, I always want to be just as well-rounded as I could be. And that means kind of this like constant battle of either being a guard player or a wrestler and trying to be the best I can be at both. Probably going to end up leaning on wrestling. And I've been training for that. That's been kind of the thing that I've been working on the last few months. But also too, it's going to depend a lot on which opponent I get. And that's going to determine my game plan usually. I think all of it. I think that one thing that I've also started to do in the last year is expand like what wrestling in jiu-jitsu means to me. Like, now wrestling in jiu-jitsu includes turtle. It includes wrestling up from the guard. It includes front headlock. It includes obviously on the feet, various ties, over under position, stuff like that. So I think that wrestling in jiu-jitsu is so much more common than we think, and so it's like such an essential skill that everybody has to develop if you want to reach a high level. Yeah, so I think I'm a way better ADCC wrestler than I ever was a folk style wrestler. And I put a lot of emphasis. Like my turtle escapes are, I think that's one of the best parts of my game. Just getting out from turtle, attacking from turtle, I'm pretty good as well. But like turtle escapes and being able to find my guard from the turtle is like something that's been a huge like addition to my game in the last year or so. I'm a leg locker as well, so like using turtle to get to leg locks is kind of like my ideal scenario. I think the toughest matchup for me is probably Giancarlo because he's so well-rounded. He wrestles, he does leg locks, he can play guard. He's so well-rounded. Those are the guys that really give me problems. I think I'm well-rounded enough that I can be, I'm good on top, I'm good on bottom, my wrestling is solid. The guys who have holes in their game, that's kind of the guys who I think I'll match up well with. So like anyone who, I won't call anybody out specifically, but like guys who are known as leg lockers, I think that's a great match for me because I can wrestle. Guys who are wrestlers, I think are good matches for me because I can play leg locks. I can wrestle up. I can do that kind of stuff. So anybody who I see that has like major holes in their game, and I think that I look at Giancarlo Bodoni from New Wave as like the top guy in the bracket, who's like the toughest matchup for me for sure. I think 66 kg it's hard because not only is it like a great division, it's like so many of my friends are in that division and like guys who I like. I think that Dorian is like such a dark horse because of his like just toughness and he's so hard to submit, he's so hard to score on. He's gonna be really hard to beat. I hope, obviously I hope the guys from the gym do really well. Ethan, Owen. I think Pato is going to take it. He made the finals last time. I think he's better than Baby Shark now. I think he's the best 66 grappler in the world. So what's cool about Mika is that he is like evolving. He's like in the top tier, and he's not just playing his game. Like I remember watching Mika. I've trained a lot with Dante, and Dante and Mika have had a lot of wars over the years. And if you look at their first match, Dante took Mika down like 5 times. You look at their match at ADCC in the semifinals, it was way closer, and Dante was not able to take Mika down. And so like now it's like if they have a third match, I'm really curious to see what would happen in terms of the wrestling exchanges, or if Mika had to go against like a really strong wrestler like PJ, how he would do, because he seems to be getting better at wrestling, or like whatever people would think are his weaknesses. And he's so well-rounded that he can do things that are off meta, and it's still have success with it. Yeah, I feel like it definitely could be like a future trend back, because maybe it's a solution to like the rumble passing, right? Because like the problem with the rumble passing that I was just talking about is like it's so hard to get attachment. So what's the best way to get an attachment? Maybe just pull them into close guard and hold them there. I feel like for me, I think that my close guard is kind of mostly used to just attack leg locks. So like if I can like maybe learn some stuff from Mika. Does he have close guard DVD or something? But like that kind of stuff would be helpful because he attacks the upper body. Like I've never seen Mika leg lock people. Maybe in the gi or something, but I've never really seen him do a lot of leg locks. He mostly does a lot of like arm bars. That's his thing. He got PJ with it. PJ that he got with a really nice arm bar from close guard, a jump arm bar.
I think it was from standing. Like step over. I mean, it might have been like a step over.
But it's an overhook arm bar. Yeah, so that's like, that's something I think I would benefit from, stuff like that. I've tried it as well, but I haven't had like the success with it. So I think that what he's doing is working, and I think that, if it continues, especially if it continues to work on the best guys, you're going to see more and more people play with it. I don't know how he got that job. I know. I mean, he definitely deserves it. He coached Joseph to win trials. I think he had like 7 guys win Europe trials the last time around. Like, he really knows his stuff. And what's interesting about Dima is he's not like this like all-knowing sensei type character. He's more of like a performance coach. Like, for him to come in for 8 weeks and run our CJI camp makes sense. Like, it's like he's not going to be like, oh, Chris, you need to like build this, you need to learn, you develop this skill. Like, I talked to him about like things I need to develop, and he was like, he gave me one. He was like, work on, finishing takedowns and scoring off of them in wrestling. And it's like, that's like one skill that I can make significant progress on over 8 weeks, instead of like coming in and being like, I know all this stuff, I'm going to show you guys all this stuff. Like, the technique is very kind of limited. Like, he's not showing a ton of technique. It's more like structuring your training so we're not overtraining, pairing us up with partners who are going to challenge us, stuff like that I think is really valuable, as opposed to just trying to do it on your own. Because like in jiu-jitsu, one problem that I think a lot of athletes have is that most of us don't have a dedicated coach. Like, there's like 5 dedicated jiu-jitsu coaches at like the highest levels, and Dima's one of them. So it's like really good to have him in the camp. And I think Danaher was like the first guy to do it, but it's funny because he did it because he had to. He had physical limitations. Now you're seeing guys like, and granted, Dima has some injuries too that has kind of helped, like, stopped him from competing. But like Sean Applegate's another guy who's like a coach, not an athlete. Greg Souders from Standard, he's another guy who is a coach. And these are guys who are like, and I don't know their stories as much as I know Dima and Danaher, but like, these are guys who are choosing to be coaches, and run gyms and help athletes reach the next level, which is like in turn making the whole sport reach the next level, because coaching is important. Everybody has really enjoyed having Dima running the camp. It's like taken I think before it was like, oh, what are we gonna teach? How do we cater for a room that has like 10 guys who are getting ready for the biggest tournament of their lives, it's the Olympics of Jiu-Jitsu, and then like someone else who's just coming in on their lunch break, and they're in the same class. So it's like, how do you run a curriculum where everybody benefits? And that should be a job, right? We should pay somebody to do that, because that's like hard. For me, like, I came up with a coach. Like, I had an instructor who like he told me what to do. He ran classes. He had trained, but he wasn't competing. He was like running the show, back when I was living in Chicago. And that was like really helpful for me. And I think that the downside of B Team is that it's really easy to kind of just become like a face in the crowd, because it's a big gym. There's not really a main guy. There's like a few main guys, and it's like hard. There's not really a coach. And so it's like hard to make progress. And so I think that they would definitely be open to having somebody like that. At least I think, that seems like a good idea to me. But like when B Team was like free, I remember like a few years ago when like they first opened it, it was like no blue belts. Like, you're making a statement when you say no blue belt. Obviously they added the white belt class later on, but like when they first started it, it was like no blue belts. You go on the website, all the classes, it just says scrimmage wrestling from 12 to 1:30, and that's the thing. It was never like this gym that was designed for people to like go from white to black belt, where like most other gyms are. So it's like kind of a different thing that hasn't really been done before. I guess maybe Danaher was kind of doing it, but even Danaher was like giving out belts and stuff like that. That's how I've always viewed it. Is like, I viewed it as like a training center as opposed to like an academy. Yeah. Like before I moved, I'd come for a month, I'd come for a week, I would like just bounce back and forth and come to like elevate my skills. And I'm like, but I'm also a black belt, so like I don't give a fuck. I don't need another belt. I got my belt. When I need my stripe for my first degree in a year, I'm just gonna fly home to Chicago and get my athletic tape, and that's it. But it's not like an academy per se in the traditional. But I think that if you look at the guys who really thrive at B Team, it's like guys who are there to compete. Guys who, like J-Rod's still a purple belt. I'm sure if somebody wanted to give him his brown belt, they could. But it's like that's not the priority there. The priority is like develop grapplers to be like compete at the professional level. So it was like a gradual thing. So the first time I came was in 2022. I did the Austin Open IBJJF like many years ago, and then I came and did a training weekend. I went to B Team, I went to Fight Factory, I went to 10th Planet. I didn't know anybody at New Wave at the time, so I just went to the Henzo in Austin, and Donaher was supposed to teach a class and he was like an hour late, and I was like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not gonna train here. I was like, the only place I could really see myself was B team, because I've always been like kind of someone who likes to kind of do their own thing. So like for me to like not have like a coach, you know, running practice every day and me running my own practice is not like that's, I like that, you know. So I was like, I could see this. There's high quality partners, you know. It's a pretty laid back environment, which was like I liked, and so I made the move to train at B team. But that was like after like 5 Austin trips. I think I was bouncing back and forth for a while. I'm like pretty sure Marigali is in 99, Declan's in 99, Kainen's in 99. I really want to see Declan against like one of those top guys from New Wave, like Marigali or Kainen. You know, he's so good, bro, and he's only getting better. It's like fighting a fucking statue. Like he's just made of steel. He's like so hard to do things to. So I really want to see him get the test against like a top caliber guy. But I would probably pick either him or Marigali for 99. Oh, I'd probably pick Big Dan because he's so big. I don't pick Mike Perez. I would love to see Mike Perez beat. Like it would be awesome if Mike Perez made day 2. You know, but I don't think he can go all the way. Oh, and Vince. Big Vince is in 99 plus.
Yeah, Big Vince is in it. Heisen is in it according to this.
Yeah. So they would have to fight second round. I've actually never watched them roll in the room. I don't know how that goes.
Big Vince and Heisem, or
Big Vince and Heisem. Yeah, I don't know how that goes. I know like.
I've seen it a few times. It was in the morning. It was not serious.
Oh, okay.
Folks are like, oh, we're having fun.
They're both so big. Heisem is deceptively big. Like he looks big, but like you don't realize how big he is until you try to like fight him. Vince is just massive. I think Vince is the biggest guy in the room. He's like, and his pressure is really good. I'm probably gonna have to pick Big Dan for that one, but I would love to see both of those guys, you know, make a deep run. Oh, Penna's in there too. Penna could make a deep run. I don't think Vinny is gonna make a deep run. I think probably Penna and Big Dan will be the final. Well, I literally today I did a round with Kenta on the pit wall, on our makeshift ghetto-ass pit wall, and it's like weird. Like the pit is actually kind of like I was using the pit for like guard retention because I was like playing on my left hip and my leg was right up against the pit, so he couldn't pass to the left because he would have to go over the pit to pass me. So it was like I was kind of just like playing around with it. I think having the rounds. Should I stop talking? I think having the rounds for CJI is really interesting because one of the things because the way we've been doing the rounds in the gym is like we're doing a 15-minute straight round for ADCC, and for CJI we're doing the 3 5s. So it's actually a 16:30 round for ADCC, 5 minutes with 30-second rest, and for CJI it's 5 minutes with 30-second rest. But there's no rest in the ADCC round, and I did a CJI round, and the pacing is so different when you have that rest. So I think that it's gonna make for a lot of really exciting matches, especially like you look at like Nicky Ryan and Andrew Tackett. That's like a crazy first round match. That could be the final. You know, it's a crazy first round match, and I think that like the rules are gonna be interesting because it's gonna be hard to exploit them because it's not like ADCC. People have been doing it for so long. Like now we know, okay, turtle, so you don't give up points, or like shoot for 3 seconds and count in your head and then play guard. You can't do that in CJI because the rules are new, you know, so they're not able to exploit them yet. Like competitors are smart; they're always going to find a way, you know, to exploit it. I am curious to see what attempts are made to exploit the rules, you know, because the way it is set up, they're hard to exploit, right? So, but people are still going to try because everyone wants to do whatever they can. So, $1 million, people are going to do whatever they have to win. But it's going to be like just I don't really know how it's gonna go, you know, which is cool. It's like we're all like, I don't know what's gonna happen. It's, you know, it's gonna be really interesting. Yeah, I hope that like the athletes are like, because the show is made by the athletes, you know, like if the athletes bring it, it's gonna be the best grappling show ever. You know, if the athletes try to exploit the rules and do as little as possible, which could also happen, right? Like you could see like some of the most boring matches ever are like ADCC finals matches because nobody wants to lose as opposed to like trying to win, you know? So like I'm like, my fear is like because $10,000 is a lot of money. But when you compare it with $1 million, it's not that much money at all, you know? So like people are gonna maybe try to not lose the million instead of trying to win the million. So I'm curious to see how it plays out, you know? Like I said, like some ADCC finals matches have been super boring, and that's my fear, is that like people are gonna treat every match like it's the ADCC finals, and they're gonna be afraid to take risks. Hopefully that does not happen, and hopefully just every match is a war.
I think at least in under 80, you have a number of guys who like you can rely on.
Well, the other thing too, and you bring up an interesting point, is like exciting matches are made by the athletes, not the rule set. You know, you have like if you want to have an exciting match, you have to move. You know, you have to do things. If you're like boring and trying to exploit the rules and like focused on being a gamer as opposed to like being a showman, it's gonna be boring. I feel like Ty's gonna do some weird shit. No, doesn't train at BT.
Okay.
He's been there before, but he hasn't been in for the camp. I'm gonna pick Roberto. I'm gonna pick Roberto, but it could go either way. That's a good one.
Do you see like what his path is?
Well, the thing is, like Roberto is great at taking the back, and so is Levi. So I'm gonna pick somebody taking the back.
Double back thing.
Or they cancel each other out, and if they cancel each other out, then I pick Roberto.
Yeah, that's Lucas Barbosa and Kenta.
Oh, Kenta's just so tough. He's just such a warrior, you know. I'm gonna pick Kenta, and also that would be a sick upset. That'd be a sick upset.
Oh, yeah.
He could. It could go either way, but I'm gonna pick Kenta because he really impressed me. I know he lost the match with Mika, but he's such a dog. You know, he has like if it took Mika that long to submit him, I think Mika's so much better than Barboza. You know, yeah, he could gas Barboza if Barboza has a bad cut. Joseph is, I think, is one of my favorites to win the whole thing. So that would be like that one. Denise could win. I'm gonna pick Cade, but I think Denise could win just because he's like, Cade has just been like he looked really good in his last few matches for one, and I just think that he's just I think he's just better than Denise. But Denise could win. But Denise like is kind of he's not super exciting, whereas Cade is so dynamic and they do so much movement that I think that could be a problem, especially because Denise is cutting a lot of weight. That's a good match. I picked Tommy. I think that Hanato. One of my favorite matches ever is Hanato versus Gary Tonin at ADCC. So like Hanato's gonna do some crazy shit off the pit. I think that's gonna be cool to watch. He's really athletic and really fun to watch. But I picked Tommy. I think Tommy has better jiu-jitsu. Owen's so good, man. I've trained with Owen. He's big. He's gonna be cutting a lot of weight. If Owen makes day 2, I think he can win the whole thing. If he gets through day 1, the first day, and he has that because the second day after a weight cut, you're so much better than the first day, just from experience. So if he gets through the first day, I think he would. What do you have? Tackett and Nikki next.
Tackett or Nikki Ryan.
Second. I think that I don't know who to pick in that one. Nikki's looked really good. Also, I'm going to pick Nikki because I think Nikki's strength is Tackett's strength, and I think Nikki's stronger there with his wrestling. Tackett's like a top player and a wrestler. His guard is good, but you pretty much always see him on top, and I think Nikki has the ability to take him down. That's a good match. Live Z. Yeah. But like Muhammad Ali could judo Live Z. Like he does some crazy shit. He's really athletic. He's a football player level athlete doing jiu-jitsu. Adam beat Kyle Bame at trials. I think he'll beat him again. Pick Adam. That's gonna be interesting. Luke Rockhold's gonna win that, I think. Luke Rockhold's a good grappler. He's like podiumed at the Pans. Even before he was doing the MMA, he was like a high level grappler who's good at purple belt and blue belt. Oh, Lucas Kaner. I've had a match with Lucas Kaner actually. He's good, but I pick who's he going against? Hugo.
Yeah, make sure you go.
Hugo's better. He's huge. He was in the gym the other day. They were doing like some media thing, and he was like, Jesus fuck. He's like, him and Nick Rod, I think, is my pick for the final. I don't know either of them. I'll pick Ignacio. I'll pick Ignacio, I guess. I don't know either of those guys. Felipe Andrew. Kerkovliet's a wrestler. He's a really good wrestler, but it's a jiu-jitsu tournament.
This is the weirdest one.
I picked Tackett.
Oh, you're picking Tackett? Okay.
Tackett is just like just so good, man. I've had matches with both the Tackett brothers. They were like some of the hardest matches I've ever had in my life. Tackett is like, he does whatever he has to do. He goes and wrestles with Penn State. He goes and does jiu-jitsu, or with the best guys. He's gonna make a deep run. Theo, Dern's been just away for too long.
Do you have like a way you think she's gonna defeat her?
Probably a knee cut to like an arm triangle or something.
Yeah, we gotta
Gabby.
Gabby?
Gabby by whatever she wants.
That's our top favorite. People's champion.
That one's gonna be really funny to watch. Just because it's gonna be silly. It's been so the beef has been it's not even beef, the memes for so long, and the memes that will be made. The real winner is the fans of that one. Yeah, so I started writing in 2020, right after I graduated college. I just was like, I need a job that I can do where I can also still pursue jiu-jitsu. And writing was easy because you can do it whenever. Like I did some writing when I woke up, I went to train, I did some more writing, and then I came here. That's like my day, and it's like just an easy job, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I was like surprised to find that I was decent at it, and so I started writing. I was doing freelance writing. I was doing like a blog on Medium, and that was decent money, and I started I was like, I want to write more about like what I'm doing in jiu-jitsu, because like as I was doing that, I started teaching full time. I was traveling to compete all over, and I was like, this is my life. I'm just gonna make this like a jiu-jitsu blog, and that turned into the Grappler's Diary, which became a newsletter, and I do it as a newsletter, and I've done it for like 3 years as a newsletter, and then like a year and a half ago, I started posting little like blogs on Instagram for the Grappler's Diary, and that has kind of like really done well. It's like almost 10,000 followers, and it's just words, right? It's cool, but that's kind of just how it started. It literally just started because I needed a job that I could also pursue jiu-jitsu with, and it kind of spiraled into like a career and like a passion. So I'm writing a book that's going to be like kind of attached to the Grappler's Diary brand. It was going to come out this summer, but then I got into ADCC and my priorities had to change for a while. So the book will be coming out hopefully this fall. Like the goal, it's all done. It just, what I've learned from this process is that writing a book is more than just writing a book. It's also editing a book. It's also finding someone to refine the edits. It's publishing. It's all that stuff. It's marketing. It's like someone like all these things that I didn't even think about when I was preparing to write a book. And so that's something that I'm working on. I write another newsletter that's like kind of about writing. So like it's like just kind of like the build in public kind of mindset. So like I write about basically like things that I learned from writing, things that help me write better, things that I've learned from writing, how to do certain things, how you build a newsletter to a few thousand subscribers, stuff like that. Just like kind of stuff that I would want to learn, stuff that I used to research. Like I think whenever we start like new projects, like what started the Grappler's Diary really was like when I was a white belt, like I would Google like how many days a week should I train, how much weight should I cut, how much strength and conditioning could I do, what's the best strength and conditioning for grappling, all these things. And I would just Google them and then read terrible articles about them, and I was like, well, I can write better articles than most of these people, so I'm just gonna do that, and that kind of is what I do with all my writing. Is I just, questions that I have, I answer them, and then I try to answer them for other people, hopefully sort of better than what's already out there, like not disingenuous to what you're working on. So like I do a lot of the stuff that's on like my experience, because it's the easiest thing to write about. Like the easiest thing to talk about is like your own experience with something. Other stuff I think is definitely valuable, and I definitely have done some, and I'd like to do more, but it's like it's really a time thing. Yeah, so the book is it's just it's not like a memoir or anything. It's like 150 like short essays about jiu-jitsu. So like basically with half a year's worth of Instagram posts, and it's like things that about training, things about fitness, things about like travel, things about just like lessons that I've learned from the training and all the travel and all the stuff that I've done in jiu-jitsu. And it's like the stuff that I post every day, but in a more like kind of personal format. Favorite books, then I have books I recommend. Which would you like?
Yeah, you do both.
So I've been on like a fiction kick recently. So my favorite books, in terms of like books I would recommend, I try to recommend mostly nonfiction because that's like what you're supposed to recommend. 'Cause it's like what people like for personal development. But I feel like I like reading fiction more. I love like Herman. In terms of personal development, I like Herman Hesse or whatever. Siddhartha's a good one. Demian is a good one. I think I've read some Hemingway this year. And that's pretty, been pretty good. At this point, I'm like mostly reading for like writing style, and trying to like find which writing styles I like the best. I listened to A Tale of Two Cities for the first time since like middle school, and I like fucking loved it, and I didn't like it the first time at all. Let's see, what else have I really liked? I feel like one thing that I would like recommend in terms of books is like find books that are easy to read. Like that's how you become a reader, is you just like read the book that is like super easy for you. So like if I read a book and I was reading Kafka recently, and I read Metamorphosis in like one sitting, and I was like, okay, that's a good book, so I should probably read more stuff like this. But I think that in terms of like book recommendations, I think that I more so recommend that people just like don't overthink it. Don't read a book because it's like that's what people say you should read. Like follow your curiosity and read what's easy until you become a reader. Okay, what's a banger is Letters from a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke. It's like a guy is writing letters to a person about poetry, and it ends up being this like, because poetry is like, how do you write poetry? You like live, right? So like trying to teach someone how to write poetry is very similar to like trying to teach someone how to like live well. So that's like definitely a book that I would really like, and it's nonfiction, I guess, but it's more like philosophical essays. And it's short too, which is like I would really recommend that one. Oh, another really good one is Island by Aldous Huxley. So Huxley is known for Brave New World, which is like a classic, and I would really recommend that. But Island is like kind of his like solution. So Brave New World, for those who don't know, it like presents a problem, like this problem of like instant gratification and like the dulling of the senses, and it has kind of a sad ending. It doesn't end well, and Aldous Huxley writes kind of a solution to that in Island. And so I think that it taught me a lot about like spirituality in like kind of a non-preachy way, and in the form of a story. So that would be another one, and then one more. Let's see. Okay, so the last one that I'll recommend is Jiddu Krishnamurti. I think it's the best philosophy that I've read is from him, and the best book that I would recommend is the Book of Life. It's like 365 meditations. It's actually kind of like what inspired the book that I wrote, because it's easily digestible. So it's like similar to like Ryan Holiday's The Daily Stoic. It's like you could read one passage a day. It's like similar, but it's more like kind of like a Eastern philosophy, spirituality type book. I'd recommend that one as well. The other one is a Bilal. We talked about him a few minutes ago. He was like, I actually almost had a grappling match with Bilal at Fight to Win in Chicago when I was a brown belt, but like he got a fight on short notice with Wonder Boy, like, and had to turn it down. And I was like, oh, probably didn't want the smoke, but but he's another like Chicago athlete who's like the thing about Chicago, and I'm being hypocritical by even pointing this out, but everybody bails, because in combat sports, nobody stays because the training is not as good. It's like hard to find partners, especially in jiu-jitsu. Bilal's like the one guy who didn't bail. He stayed in Chicago and he made it to the top. So, definitely another one I'd mention. So I don't have an emotional attachment to any MMA fighter. I've never been able to care that much.
Okay.
But I have fighters that I like enjoy watching. I used to enjoy, I always enjoyed the grapplers. I really enjoyed Damian Maia when he was, like fighting a lot. I liked watching Connor. I know that like people say what they want to say, but he was like cool to watch when he would like predict knockouts. I liked watching Khabib. I always liked Dustin Poirier as well. I think Luke Rockhold is a good example. He's like a guy who had such good grappling in MMA. And like I said, he was a really high level grappler before he started, doing MMA full time. I think he won the Pans at blue belt. I think he won it at purple belt or won Nogi Worlds or something. But he's like a good example, I think, of a guy who I always like to watch his grappling in MMA. Nicky Rod. Because like the thing is, like, I've rolled with actually no, I haven't rolled with anybody like bigger and more dangerous than Nicky Rod. But also too, Nicky Rod doesn't roll with you like you're a small person. He doesn't the thought that, oh, Chris is 180, 190 now, but like he doesn't have the thought in his head like, oh, Chris is 180, I'm 230, maybe I should go easy. So Nicky Rod's definitely the scariest person ever. He's the only person who's tapped me with a cross face as a black belt. Joseph Chen. What's really impressive about Joseph is like I talked about this like earlier, like how well-rounded people are. People who are really well-rounded really impress me. Like Joseph, like his wrestling has gotten so much better. His guard is really good. He has the best passing in the room. Like he's just like so well-rounded and so technical, and also like not a physical freak. Like I think the thing about the guys who are huge and like really athletic is they can only impress me so much, because you're always gonna kind of think that it comes down to their attributes, whereas like Joseph has the like understanding and the not just the understanding. A lot of people have the understanding, but also the application. So I think he's probably the most impressive guy. My father is Polish and Italian. My mom is for all of this Dutch, Welsh, German, all that shit. I was born in England to American parents. So I have a British passport. So I've been able to compete in Europe and travel in Europe. And we used to live in Europe. But my parents are American. They were expats for a while. But I'm born in England, so I have an English passport. I could probably get a Polish passport and an Italian passport because, I've seen guys with less citizenship get passports in those places. But I was born in England, and I moved when I was a baby to Chicago. Lived in Chicago my whole life.